Hello and welcome in a video where we will see how to deploy Dyson Protocol node with Podman as a containerization platform. In this video, we'll cover following topics: node updates to keep node up to date and secure, prerequisite packages for the deployment, dedicated user account, which will be non-root user account. We will enable Podman API on dedicated user account. Then we clone Dyson repository with all the components for the deployment. We modify configuration slightly. Then we initialize the node and start the containers. And then we go through post-deployment activities. Let's start. For the entire demo, we use Ubuntu Linux 22.04 NTS. First activity we recommend is to update the system to the most recent packages. For that, we use of course apt package manager, so we pull information about most recent packages from the repository, then we download packages and install them on the system. Depends on the number of packages which have to be installed. This activity might take some time. Once it's finished, our systems will be brought up to date, and we recommend as a next step to reboot the system to make sure that the right version of the packages will be used. Next step is to install all required packages. Those are listed on the screen, and we again use apt package manager to deploy all the packages which will be required by further node deployment. As we're using Ubuntu 22.04, it is also required to install additional component for container networking, as default component included with the system has a little bug working with Podman. Now it's time to create dedicated user account for our node deployment. We name user Dyson, and that will be non-root user account, which will provide better security and the process separation for our deployment. To create a user account, we just use default @user command in Linux. Once user account will be created, we'll do one more thing. We enable session linger for the user Dyson, which will allow to preserve user processes once the user logs off from the system. Now we are ready to enable Podman API. To do that, first we access the system using Dyson user created in the previous step, and then using systemctl command we enable systemd services, which will make Podman able to spin the containers in the user context. Once services are started, we will also create some environmental variables which are required by Podman. For the purpose of current use, we just export variable to the shell right away, And in the next step, we'll also add the same variable to our profile, so it will be set each time we log back into the system as a Dyson user. Now we have all commands in place. It's time to clone Dyson repository, which contains all necessary scripts and files to spin the containers with a node and synchronize our server with the blockchain. So let's do that. Now we have all files in place, let's adjust them a little bit. First, makefile. In here, we just replace docker space compose with docker dash compose to make it compatible with Podman. Same change will be applied to scripts/start.sh. Now, small adjustments in docker-compose.yaml, where first we change links to depends on, which is more up-to-date syntax. And after that, in the same file, we'll adjust the ports on which services will be running. By default, containers will be running in the user context, so the ports must be above 1024. All components in place, let's execute make mainnet start, which will download the containers, create initial configuration for the node, and start synchronization with the blockchain. We can see on the screen containers are being downloaded, and after some time we can see containers starting, state sync is being downloaded from the chain, and node is synchronizing with the chain. Let's stop the containers by pressing Ctrl+C. This activity might take a while. Once finished, now we can see which containers being deployed and executed a minute ago. Now, let's make sure our containers will automatically start once the system will be rebooted. To do that, first we generate service file using Podman generate systemd command, and we generate service file for the Dyson deploy chain1 container. That's the chain. Once the file is created, we can look into the content of the file, and then we move the file to appropriate folder in the user folder structure, so it will be correctly recognized by systemd. Now, we can reload configuration of the systemd to recognize new service file. Then we can enable service in the user context. Once that's done, we can start the service. When the service is started, we can check the status of it, if it's correctly running. Now let's have a look into the container logs to see if chain is synchronizing. All looks good. Your Dyson Protocol chain node is up and running. Enjoy until next time!